Hey guys, welcome into Compute This. We're going to give it just a couple seconds here while we wait for everyone else to join us on the program here today. I'm going to send a couple emails here before I forget to send these out too. There's that one, and we got to make sure we get these gift certificates out because I got two and I know I'll forget. So we have two winners today. We have Dave at and we have CH at there we go. All right, so welcome in everybody. I'm glad you can join us for the After Schrock today. So the main reason probably a lot of people are tuning in is this coronavirus thing. So there's some stories that I read. They have not hit the mainstream media yet. I got this information initially from Zero Hedge, which is a kind of an alternative financial blog. Sometimes articles on Zero Hedge, you have to be careful with them because sometimes they are wildly like Russian propaganda. I mean, stupid, because they aggregate articles from lots of sources, but they publish it under, everything is published as Tyler Durden as the author, even though the articles are written by several people and come from several places. And then sometimes they're writing articles covering other people's articles. Sometimes the media sources are wild Russian propaganda. Sometimes they're anti-Semitic, and you have to just walk away from those. Sometimes they're financial in nature and actually useful. And sometimes there's stuff like what you read today that you go back and you look through where they source their information and you can learn a lot. So one of the things that is breaking, it's been confirmed by 2 different countries, is that the coronavirus actually is spliced. It appears to have been, from my understanding of the reporting, a man-made virus. The reason that it is being reported as a man-made virus is because the proteins, and again, I'm not a virologist, you know, I am stretching the boundaries of my understanding to get my head around this, but you know, when you had MERS and you had SARS, they were capable of spreading from person to person, but when they spread, they were symptomatic. That's why you were seeing people at the airport getting the forehead temperature thing, because if you were symptomatic, you could spread it, and if you were not symptomatic, it would not spread. So it was not, when you could be infected with it, but you weren't spreading it until you were symptomatic. Okay. The big difference between those previous coronaviruses, or those previous ones, and the new novel one is that this one can spread when it's asymptomatic. And we've seen that it spreads to close contacts. There was a husband and wife in America or in Germany, excuse me, that spread it to each other. We got more cases popping up in America now. And these are people who did not travel to China. There are people, or who did not travel anywhere. There are people who had direct co-workers, relatives who did travel to China, came back and spread it to their loved ones or people in the office or whatever. So we know it can be spread from person to person, and we know it can be spread now when it is not symptomatic. So that's a huge change in the virus, right? That's a huge mutation. How did that happen? It turns out that the protein that is responsible, so I'm going to say this, and when I say it, it's going to sound super freaky and people's jaws are going to drop and everyone's going to freak out. Sit with me on this one, don't freak out. But there's a piece of HIV in this virus. So the coronavirus does not give you AIDS or anything like that, or even HIV, but what's been done is the protein that is the same protein that allows the HIV virus to hook into host cells and bond with them is the same protein that's available, that is being used in the coronavirus to do the same thing. As we know with HIV, it is asymptomatic for a long time. It doesn't show any symptoms, and then when you get sick, you get sick. So anyway, that is confirmed. It was confirmed by India. I believe it was confirmed also by another Asian country. I'm not sure, but there's 2 Asian countries, or India and an Asian country, reporting that they've done the genomic science. They've sequenced the genome on this, and now they know, they can look at it and they know this is what's going on. It also explains a little bit. Wuhan is the only level 4 biolab, the only level 4 biolab in China responsible for researching the world's worst genetic pathogens is located in Wuhan. This thing was originally supposed to, and you still see it in the mainstream media reported as coming from a seafood market in Wuhan. It did not come from a seafood market in Wuhan. Multiple scientists have now traced it back. It went into the seafood market in Wuhan, and it came out of the seafood, or it's not seafood. It's a wet market. So animals, not seafood. Excuse me. Wet market. It went into the wet market. It came out of the wet market, but it didn't start in the wet market. And they've been able to trace it back far enough now that they know that for a fact. So long story short, guys. There's a reason that China's really upset about this. A real big reason that they're upset about it. China was upset over the weekend that everyone is closing borders with China. They're cutting all air traffic between China. If you're flying a cargo plane, do you really want to land in China right now as a pilot? You're going to have to get off the plane at some point, right? It's got to get loaded. You're going to get on a different plane and fly off. What about the guy before you? You're going to sit in a cockpit with some guy who's on a different plane in China? I mean, the thing that freaks me out here is not so the virus is bad, right? But in the past, if we look at this from a non-alarmist perspective, as bad as it is, these things burn out. Okay, they have all the previous ones have a trail where they go up, they level, and then they trail down. So it just so happens that the coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, is going up like a rocket and it has not leveled off at all yet. And you can see that from the charts that we shared on the GIS website, the GIS data website here, that is monitoring the coronavirus outbreak. So anyway, the information I wanted to bring you today, guys, is number one, China did not allow, there was 3 or 4 requests from the World Health Organization to get somebody into China to help China with this, and China denied or declined help 3 or 4 times before finally accepting it. They only accepted help when there were cases that are outside of China already. What that tells me is China didn't really want anyone looking into the genome of the virus. But when it became apparent that somebody was going to do it anyway, and China was in over their heads, they realized, okay, let's get some help here. I mean, I know I'm painting. This is conjecture at my point now. This is not backed up by anything I've read. This is me just stringing facts together and saying, okay, we have a virus in China that was probably created by man. If it started in China, it was probably created by China. Coincidentally, the outbreak is the only location in China where there's a level 4 biolab designed to do this kind of work. Okay, it's not causality, but it sure is coincidence, right? So, okay, so we got that. Now this is spreading. It's got an incubation period in which it is transmittable without symptoms, and half of the city of Wuhan left for the holiday before they put the travel restrictions in place, which means the numbers that we're seeing today of 15,000 infected people should be exponentially higher in 14 days. So locking down China right now is the absolute best thing you could do. Is to completely isolate them, nothing in, nothing out, until we know what we're dealing with. Of course, China, a lot of countries have started doing that, and China is very upset about it because the Chinese economy was already in not great shape because of the trade war, and there were other internal concerns there as well. But now you've got factories idled. You have no commerce. Travel is, any foreign sources of money coming into China right now are completely at a standstill. So China has a lot of reserves. They're not a poor country. They're going to be able to string this along for quite a while. But the challenge you have now is, depending on how bad this really is on the ground, the stuff that China has been trying to censor, the stuff coming out on the internet about it, but there's so much that some of it's getting through. And once it gets through on Facebook or Twitter and it gets retweeted and shared, basically the videos are out there. They can't be rescinded when they're outside of China. Yesterday, we saw a video, again, translation not confirmed, unfortunately. It was just translated by one person. A woman in China who lost either one or all of her relatives. There's no plural in Mandarin for relative or relatives, but she was upset that her family is dead. And she demanded that the Communist Party step down, and she asked if the communist officials that run the country are humans or devils. She didn't wear a mask when she said it. She's past the point of caring at this point about the virus or the communists. If that is how the feeling on the ground is in China right now, China's building 4 10,000 bed hospitals that they're building in like 2 weeks. Now, first of all, great. You can build a hospital in 2 weeks. That's awesome. You can't staff it, fill it with supplies, train the people, and have systems in place in 2 weeks. It just doesn't happen. I've opened Schrock service centers before that we don't have systems in place in 2 weeks for. Not because we don't want to, but just because every service center is different. Every hospital is different. You can't take the systems from one hospital and perfectly transplant them into another hospital. The small little things will always add up to be a big thing to come back and bite you later. So you can't do it. So why would China be doing that if there wasn't a bigger problem than 16,000 people? Why would you need 50,000 beds for 16,000 infected people unless it's way worse? Pictures that I have seen online that are reportedly from China. This is the problem with pictures. Pictures can be edited, pictures can be staged. There's all kinds of reasons people would want to do this. But what I have seen appears to be relatively consistent. The streets of Wuhan are a ghost town. They're calling the local residents are calling it zombie land, because the only reason people are out and about is because they're moving from hospital to hospital, because each hospital has a roughly 100 coronavirus test kits that they can use in a day. So if you're infected in the city of Wuhan, a city of 11 million people, put that into perspective for a second. 11 million people, a city that size, and you're moving from hospital to hospital trying to find a test kit to tell you why you feel sick. People aren't going to get test kits when they feel healthy. They're not going out of their homes if they feel healthy. So these are sick people that are going out in the street because they're sick and they want to know if they're going to die. And so they want to get a test. But the hospital nearest them doesn't have any, so they move to the next one and the next one. But there's no public transportation. Trains are shut down. Buses are shut down. So how do you get from place to place? Well, you can get a taxi in some cases, but if you can't get a taxi or you can't afford a taxi, you're walking miles and miles on foot. Now you have a person with walking pneumonia, walking miles and miles and miles to try to get a test to see if their walking pneumonia is going to kill them or not. And that's the state of the healthcare situation in China, in Wuhan at least right now. The healthcare system is completely overwhelmed. They are running out of masks. They are running out of supplies. They literally cannot keep up. The nurses, from what I've seen from nurses, there were videos who have gotten through, again, unverified translations. Unfortunately, I don't speak Mandarin, but according to the translation that I've seen, they're saying that the nurses are working 23, 22-hour-a-day shifts. The doctors are working just breakneck speeds, trying to see everybody that wants to be seen, and they literally can't keep up. When you look at the hospitals, there are patients lining the hallways on gurneys, not because they're dead or anything, that morbid, but they don't have any rooms. So literally you have hospitals bursting at the seams because there's no rooms. You don't have enough doctors, because if you did have enough doctors, they wouldn't be working 22 and 23-hour-a-day shifts, which leads me again back, circle it back around. You're going to build 50,000 new hospital beds. Who is going to visit the patients? You don't have any more doctors. So they're bringing in doctors and military people from other communities into Wuhan to help address the situation. So again, I'm not trying to cause any panic. I'm not trying to say that this is all stuff that's going to be reported next week in the mainstream media anyway. I am 90% certain that the AIDS insertion is real, that it's going to be reported by mainstream media. It might already be if we Google search it and look for news results. It may already be being reported. I'll guarantee you that we have not seen the worst in the stock market from this yet. I'll guarantee you that there is going to be some kind of supply chain disruption. It may not be dramatic. It may not be like you can't get things at the store dramatic, but there's going to be a disruption that's going to cause costs to go up for companies that provide things if they have a supply chain related to China, because you're going to have to think about your fireworks that you buy. Every piece of fireworks that you buy almost anywhere is made in China. Well, people go to China in like March, April to go get the fireworks ordered basically. And yeah, you can do some of that over the internet. Unless the people at the warehouses aren't working or the people at the factories aren't working, then there's no one to talk to and you can't. So you can see how it's just going to push everything back a few weeks. It's going to make everyone scramble a little harder. It's going to make weaker organizations drop balls. It's going to make stronger organizations with inventories more profitable, because they'll be able to raise the prices of their inventories. So just keep an eye on this, guys, because from an economic perspective, it could have really, really bad consequences for Asia. Those could reverberate with, protect yourself, protect your investments, that kind of thing. From a health perspective, we don't have too much to worry about in America just yet. We wash our hands after we go to the restroom. If you want to have a scary story to tell the kids to get them to wash their hands, this would be it. we wash our hands when we go to the bathroom. We clean up after ourselves. We don't live in filth, So that's it. In the shops, we're taking sensible precautions that make sense even for the flu. In the past, all the shops have Lysol. We all have Lysol, and the guys are supposed to Lysol all the shop keyboards and mice and things like that. We've just taken that a step further now. We just Lysol. We already wipe down your computer when it comes in. We Lysol your keyboard on your laptop too now. We basically have just taken it one step further, that when you bring a computer in for maintenance or work, we're going to clean it up and make sure it's nice and healthy and good when it goes out the door from a computer perspective. Now we're just cleaning it too. We were wiping it down anyway, so why not disinfect it while we're doing it? We have the stuff here to do it. Why don't we disinfect it before we work on it? That makes a lot of sense, right? So that we don't become a spreader of the flu or colds or anything worse that might come down the pike. So take sensible precautions. Do the things that make sense for you and your family. Like I said, we went out, we got, we go through a lot of Diet Pepsi in my house. We bought some Diet Pepsi. Survival food, baby, Diet Pepsi. We got some water. My son drinks Aquafina. He doesn't like pop. He drinks lots of water. God bless that kid. But he goes through lots of bottles of water. So we know how much water he goes through in a month. So we bought bottles of water. So we have that much. We just bought a month's worth of supplies today that we were going to buy in the month of February anyway. My wife sat down and did her meal planning. We figured out what she was going to make. We went out and got the ingredients for it. So we're good. We're good so that way, if there's a disruption and we can't get one particular ingredient, we don't have to scrap a meal plan, So, and if it's nothing, what did we do? We didn't spend any money we weren't going to already spend. So anyway, this is going to disrupt some supply chains. It's going to have an impact on the financial markets. It already has a little bit. Just keep an eye on it. Watch for I have people that watch this show for investment advice. I'm not an investment guy, but I got a call on the service center the other day from a customer who was like, "Yeah, you told me about this, that, or the other hot stock tip, and I made a ton of money. You got anything else?" And I'm like, 3M. They make face masks. That might be. They just had a bad quarter or something. Their stock was down. So yeah, I would buy 3M right now. The other thing I heard, China just yesterday released all of the tariffs on anything imported from the United States that is related to the outbreak. Excuse me, not the tariffs and all taxes. So now things like face masks, medical stuff, all that stuff can come into the country with no taxes, no tariffs at all, including ambulances made by Ford or Chevy. So if I'm Ford or Chevy right now, I'm moving ambulances into China like nobody's business. Let's empty the yard. Is there anything else we can convert into an ambulance? That expedition is kind of big. Can we make it an ambulance, and send it into China? But so there might be a little bit of a pop from vehicles coming forward. But 3M, anything that makes medical stuff. The other thing that I'll caution you against is the biotech stocks. Anybody who says there's going to be a cure for this in the next year is lying to you. There's not going to be a cure or a vaccine or anything. This virus, now we knew it was only 70% genetically similar. This virus, that 30%, part of that's that HIV insert. That's why this drug, in Chinese hospitals right now, they are treating patients with HIV drugs, and the HIV drugs are stopping the transmission of the virus. So China knew from the get-go what they were dealing with. That's why they're treating people with HIV drugs. What doctor just figured that out? I wonder if I give you this drug for like HIV, I mean, how many drugs did you give the guy? Did you give him like, I heard Larry King advertising like colon pills or something, Hey, did you give him that too? The prostate pills, maybe those have an impact on it. You don't just give people random drugs and see if they have an impact. They gave this guy an HIV inhibitor because they knew that would work. So, the standard, everybody who says we've been working on a cure for SARS and MERS and that cure could be applicable to this, it won't be. So if you're in any biotech stocks that make vaccines that are hoping to make a vaccine for this, watch out for that. It's not the same virus. It's nowhere near the same virus. And even if they do develop a cure, it's got to go through trials. It's going to take a year. And in a year, this whole thing will either be burnt out or we'll be live testing people for a cure because we don't have a year. So those are kind of the two options. So bottom line, guys, be calm, be reasonable, and keep a heads up about it. All right, I'm going to go through some comments here. Let's see what we got, and then we can go into stuff from the shop this week. Attention AfterSchrock fans. I've had the SSD upgrade done in January of 19. Best upgrade to do for older computers. Probably extended my life 3 to 4 years. Mark's not wrong. The solid state upgrade is amazing. What it does for computers and how it makes them run that much faster. So thank you for that, Mark. Appreciate it. Wesley, good morning from downtown Des Moines. Good morning, Wesley. How are you doing? All right. Lost the sound here, Susan? I'm not sure. I hope I didn't even look down at the comments. I hope I have sound because everyone's responding. So so it must be a local thing, Susan. But after this is done, when we finish it, we post it to the Facebook page. So you'll be able to post it there or to view it later on with sound. Hey, Nancy, thanks for joining us from Phoenix. How's it going over there? Hi, Blake. Good to see you. All right. Yeah, Mark, a lot of people have told me that the polo is a better look for me than the T-shirt. So I'll take that. Sound keeps going in and out. Just my phone? I'm not sure, Carolyn, but you're the second person, so let's find out. Facebook is acting strange, but now I can see the AfterSchrock full screen. Okay. Had 2 Mac mini drives changed to SSDs. Yep, Russell, I remember those guys. Those were fun to do. All right, sounds good for everybody else, but you can stock them with magic wands. I'm not sure what Keith was replying to with that. Okay, working on the computer and now working on phone. Perfect. We could have a real quiet 4th of July. Oh, don't worry about it, Keith. There's enough fireworks in storage somewhere. You just may not have the newest, latest, greatest. We have a client that actually does a lot of fireworks stuff. We do web work for him. And I was talking to him and I said, you probably can't store the stuff. You have to, buy new every year, right? And he goes, oh, no, actually, when fireworks are made, they're made wet. And so they dry. And the longer they have to dry, the more explosive they become. So actually, a year or 2-year-old fireworks will pop louder and shoot higher and be brighter than fireworks that were made that year. So actually, if you want to, what you should do is you should buy your fireworks and save them for a year. So you know that there's warehouses all over the place with last year's leftover fireworks, and they're still making. There will be fireworks from China by the time. It takes a month to get here, so it it depends, I guess, but there will be fireworks from somewhere. We'll still have fireworks. Maybe the price may be higher because there may be fewer of them. Yeah, computer keyboards are very filthy. Lovely Kimberly is right. We had a story 2 weeks ago. I think it was about your phone. How nasty it is. How you have to please clean your phone. I actually cleaned mine the other day. I was like, yeah, I'm taking my own advice. I had the Clorox wipe. I was cleaning the cracks. Like, yeah, this is nasty. I've never cleaned this out. But take your phone out of your case and clean it, and then clean the case before you put it back in. Yeah, it's one of those things. They're filthy. Yeah, stay home if you're sick. That's good stuff. You clean when you get a computer before you work on it, but do you clean it after someone's worked on it? The thing we do is, in the past, we have not cleaned the computer before we start. In the past, we work on the computer, because we blow out dust and everything. Last thing you want to do is get it wet before you blow out all that loose dust, even with just Lysol or something, because it makes mud and then the stuff doesn't blow off and it's a mess. So normally we don't do that. We don't clean the machine before we blow it out and do the work on it. The cleaning is the very last thing, because if we clean out your computer and then we clean out 5 other computers, but your computer takes a day to fix, by the next day there's a nice layer of dust on it, and we want them to be clean when they go out the door. So we wipe them down. We clean them. Basically, we just added a Lysol step to that now. So what this means is, like, when I come in the morning, I Lysol everything on the bench. When I get to your shop, I Lysol everything on your bench. And the guys are seeing me do it, and our new hires are looking at me like he's that crazy germaphobe guy. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm just, my front desk was out sick the other day. This is a sensible precaution, because I had an employee who was out sick. Let's make sure that this doesn't spread at work. It's very sensible. So yeah, we maintain a very clean environment. We actually have robots that clean the shop too. It's kind of cool, for real. All right, no problems with sound there. Sound is good. Yeah, I do have trouble having sympathy for a country that eats dogs and cats. Don, I'm just saying, if you want to take a look at something cool, Google pictures of bat soup. Like, they say, oh, this came from bat soup, right? Bat soup is the most disgusting thing. They literally are eating soup from the open body cavity of a bat. And in some cases, the bat that they put in the soup is alive. Here's a link to the pictures for those of you who are crazy enough to look. But this is what people eat in China. There's the culture in China. Eating live animals is considered like an invigorating, eating an animal that is alive. So eating a bat or eating a bunny or, literally. So the wet market is a real big deal in China. And all those animals together, all the bodily fluids mixing and everything else is what causes these viruses to mutate, because you take animals that little bunnies don't encounter, amphibians typically, but you get them both together in the same enclosed space with all those germs mixing, and it creates like a supercell of germs, and things can migrate and blend. But I'm just saying it's really unlikely that HIV manually or naturally combined with coronavirus in the Wuhan wet market to spread across the population. That is about as unlikely as it gets. In fact, they have a term for it in virology, and it escapes me what the term is, but it's like it's not likely, which translates in their language to this is freaking impossible, man. I mean, literally, it's that out there. That's why I can tell you with 90% certainty you're going to be reading this in the mainstream media in the next week. All right, let's see. I have an Asus ROG, and the C drive shows 915 gigs total and 272 gigs available. Is there an SSD that would be practical? Oh, yeah, absolutely. We can get SSDs we can replace. You have a 1 terabyte hard drive. I'm assuming you mean 915 gigabytes total, which is a terabyte. So we can get a terabyte solid state and replace that for you. We can get a 2 terabyte solid state and put that in there. We can get a 4 terabyte solid state. So we can get whatever drive size you need. We just have to have you bring it in so we can figure out what you need. We'll get you pricing for it, and the same thing applies. We'll install it, clone it, the whole bit, no labor charges. So it's a pretty awesome deal. I seem to be coughing a lot. That's because I've been talking for 2 hours straight with very few drinks of water. The other thing, guys, I don't know if you know this or not. So right now, I'm actually shouting because I'm deaf in my left ear. So for me, being twice as loud sounds normal. Most people, this is probably a conversational volume I'm speaking at right now, and this is much less stressful on my voice. But unfortunately, because I'm deaf in one ear, I usually talk at this level of volume, and half of you can't hear me anyway, so I have to keep speaking up, right? So I tend to talk a little louder than I should, and when you talk for 2 hours straight at that volume level, you get a little scratchy. But no, I mean, I'd be lying if I said last night I was like, I told my wife, I'm like, man, I'm not, I don't have the Wuhan virus, but I feel like I'm fighting something off because, the Thor doesn't get sick. The Thor doesn't go down. And when he does get sick, I don't always get sick, but when I do, I whine like a baby. Oh, yeah, because I never get sick. I was exposed to so many virulent life forms as a child that I seem to be impervious to many things, which is great. I'm blessed with an amazing constitution. That's one of the essential ingredients for an entrepreneur. You can't be an entrepreneur if you're sick all the time. So that's awesome. I'm very glad. So it literally makes the lovely Kimberly angry. I'm like, oh, I don't feel real good. I need to go lay down. And so I'll go lay down and take like a 3-hour nap and wake up and be like, oh, wow, I feel so much better. And she's like, oh, come on, for real? Like what, you wish I was sick? Come on. How dependent is the computer industry and you on China for components? Extraordinarily dependent. That's one of the reasons why the tariffs have caused prices of solid states. The price of solid states have come down so much, and the tariffs pushed them back up $25 or 25%. Any kind of plastics that are made. If you buy a Lenovo, if you buy a Dell, if you buy an Asus or an HP, your parts are literally coming from China. Literally. There's just the plastics, especially the palm rests, the bottom bezels, the screen backs, all those necessary components that when the customer brings in something with a broken screen or they drop it on the corner and they crack that palm rest or the bottom housing and we have to replace it, especially on Lenovo's, we have to direct order the part from China. Now, here's the problem. Like if we need to order a part, this is how it's going to impact people in real world terms. If we have to order a part from China, the lead time is usually 2 weeks, roughly, China Air Post. What if there's no one working in the warehouse to pack our order? Because they're on Chinese holiday, right? It's a holiday, woohoo, don't have to go to work. So we put our order in and it doesn't ship for a week. And then when they get back, they ship it. Well, we just push the availability of the parts back by a week, right? We're already dealing with a processor shortage. Luckily, most processors are made not in China. So this shouldn't impact that too much. But a lot of the assembly work that's done after the processors are made is done in China. So the processors are made like in America or somewhere, they're sent to China, or they're made in Taiwan or Vietnam or Malaysia or wherever. Then they're sent to China, where the cheap labor there assembles them onto boards and sends them out the door. If all of your workers are out for Chinese holiday, woohoo, no have to go to work, you're not getting any boards made. You have about 30 days of boards in the supply chain, and then things are going to get rough. The prices are going to start to go up, and when they start to go up, that's when everyone's going to say, wow, we can make so much more money if we could only make more boards right now. Is there any place else in the world we can make these things? So this is why it's an extraordinarily dangerous situation for China to be in. They already have had supply chain diversification. So yeah, phase one trade deal, woohoo, tariffs have gone down, but they're still in place. Companies are still going to avoid tariffs. Companies are still going to divest their supply chain so it's not fully in China. That is business, that's a sucking sound of business leaving China. Now we have this big virus outbreak. That's the sucking sound of money leaving China, of business leaving China, business not getting done in China, tourism not happening in China. China, who's trying to develop a consumer population of people to eat their stuff and do their work and everything else inside the country, that's not happening right now because they're not consuming anything. They're not going anywhere. So anyway, have a good one, Emily. All right, do I have to purchase one endpoint license per PC, or can I buy it once and use it on multiple PCs? Great question, Al. With endpoint, it is a per computer license, and the reason for that is because we actually monitor each computer that has a license, and if you get infected or you have a problem, we reach out to you to let you know there's a problem, or we just fix it for you remotely. So there's a lot that goes into the back end of this, and one of the things that we don't do a good job of is communicating all the work that happens behind the scenes that we're doing for you to keep you safe from endpoint. Thousands and thousands and thousands of attacks a day, of attacks a month blocked from your computer, hundreds a day. And so what we're going to start doing is we've started doing this parsing now, where we're parsing out all the information so we can send you like a report every month on, here is your security picture for this computer. This is this computer. Do you have Drive Advisor? Do you have Secure Updater? Do you have Endpoint? This is a report, basically. Here are the top threats for the month. Here are the here are the way the other antivirus companies responded to those threats. Not responded, bad, whatever else. And then we're going to send that monthly report out just to remind you the stuff that Endpoint is doing behind the scenes for your computer and why it's worth that $65 a year. You get what you pay for. It's always been true in life, guys, right? And we've said this for years. All the free stuff, the Gmail and the Google Docs and everything else, you're paying for that with your data, with your privacy. And for a whole generation of people, that was totally acceptable to expect free products. You can watch what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything bad. Now people are starting to realize that if you watch enough about what a person does, you can manipulate that person into buying things they wouldn't normally buy. That's valuable marketing data that companies will pay money for, and that's how these companies are making money off their free products. We always told you there was a cost. You knew that as a cost. As an audience, you knew that. Yet it's so tempting to, I use Google Docs. I'm willing to give up a small amount of that privacy, but I'm also protecting I'm installing things and protecting what I do on my computer as well. I know you replace iPhone screens, but do you also replace batteries? We can replace batteries and screens in iPhones. We don't make a habit of doing it, especially because of the newer Apple phones. Everything is security coded, and if you rip a cable, it's like the end of the world. But yeah, batteries are relatively simple to replace, so we can absolutely do that for you. Morning, Dennis. How are you doing? All right, got through all the questions there. So this week, stepping away from coronavirus for a moment, we've got another visit planned to the Des Moines metropolitan area. I want to take another look at Jordan Creek. The rents were a lot more expensive than I anticipated from a business owner perspective. For Jordan Creek, for those of you who are familiar, or I don't know how much familiarity there is between Omaha and Des Moines here, but to give you a price comparison, the price to locate your business on 48th and O Street in Lincoln is about the same as the price to locate your business at 168th and Burke at Village Point in Omaha. It's also about the same price to go to Jordan Creek. We don't need to be in the mall. We don't need to be on the busiest intersection in town. We're more of a destination. So people don't drive around with their broken computer looking for a place to drop it off. They know where they're going when they get in the car, or they know who they're calling when they call for a free pickup. So we don't have to spend just a ton of money to be front and center on a street. With that said, being in a new market, we might want to do that. It might be worth that for us, at least for the first 5 or 10 years, to do that. So we're going back. We're going to take a second look at Jordan Creek, because the properties that we looked at in Jordan Creek that met most of our requirements, they all lacked front door access parking. They were all buildings where you had to park in a parking lot and carry your computer in. We don't like that. All the properties that we looked at that had front door access parking, it was the craziest thing. It was like top dollar real estate, and we were right between like the tattoo parlor and the pawn shop or something, or the liquor store. I mean, it was like, that's not usually where we're used to locating. That's not what we're used to having for neighbors. I'm sure they're great people, but that's not the same crowd that we draw at Schrock. And we want to be in a business park that draws the same crowd of people that we normally interact with. Pet food stores, banks, Cox Solution Center, Best Buy. We want to be in that area, and those businesses are in Jordan Creek. And so that's where we need to be. 2 of our competitors are also in the Jordan Creek area, though. So how close do we want to be to them? We can't. One of them is in one of the business parks we were looking at, so we can't even locate in that business park. So yeah, I mean, it's a complex decision, but we are working forward on that and looking into that to get that done. Richard says, I switched my external hard drive to a different computer, shows error code. Why is that? Because you can't do that, Richard. You can't take a hard drive out of one computer and transplant it to another computer. The base hardware is completely different. So the reason you're getting a blue screen error is the computer is doing one of 2 things. Either it's trying to load chipset drivers from the old computer's motherboard and apply them to the new computer's motherboard, which they're completely different and they won't work. Number 2, the other possibility is that the old computer's method for accessing the hard drive was the older IDE method, and the new computer has an ACHI method for accessing the hard drive. If you take this one out, it's programmed to use IDE, and you stick it in here, IDE doesn't work anymore. It's a low security method that does not work on modern computers any longer. So unfortunately, the right way to do what you're trying to do is you have to install whatever hard drive was in the computer, put it back in, and then do a data transfer from the old hard drive into the new computer. You move all the documents, files, settings, email, everything like that. Then you have to reinstall all of the applications from scratch. The main reason people try to do what you're doing right now is because they have applications or programs installed on the old hard drive that they no longer have installation media for. For example, I got my copy of Office at Work before I retired, and they gave it to me for free. And I know Office is like $300. I don't want to buy that, so I just want to transfer it over. Or number 2, I have this old version of Quicken from 1947, and I want to get it to where it worked in my Windows XP computer, and I want it to work in my new computer, so I'm going to take my XP hard drive and stick it in the new computer. That won't work for so many reasons, I won't even list them all. But that's what you're trying to do, and that's why it won't work. Yeah, Eileen, literally, the realtor that I was talking to told me, I said, why on earth are the rates, like the triple net rate? So the rate per square foot is roughly the same as high-end real estate in Omaha or high-end in Lincoln, but the triple net, or the price for maintenance plus property taxes, is ridiculously higher. It's like $9, $10 a square foot. So you put $22 or $23 a month, or $23 a square foot rent, plus $10 a square foot maintenance and taxes, that's $32 a square foot. That's, being inside the Village Point Mall is $40, including triple nets. So we're not locating inside of a mall. Like we're not paying mall rent. That we're outside the mall. And he literally told me, well, Jordan Creek is developing, and unfortunately there's just not a lot of land left. This is Iowa. On the drive in, I seem to have noticed quite a bit of available land for development. Maybe it would not technically be inside Jordan Creek at that point. Maybe there's some governmental barrier that's preventing Jordan Creek from expanding beyond the line or whatever. But I just found that comment to be very funny. Like, they're not making any more land, Thor. And I'm like, it's Iowa. There's lots of undeveloped land. But anyway. All right. Certainly located in the central Des Moines area. Valley West Mall might be a good location too. Or close to one. And that's the thing. I don't mind being across the street from a mall like we are at Village Point. I don't want to be in the mall, because when you're in the mall, you have you have customer service issues. So you can't park at the front door at the mall. Have you ever tried to park inside of a mall at the front door of a building? Of any building at Village Point? You can't. It's always full. You're parking in the parking field and you're walking a block and a half to get to the mall, which I don't mind doing that when I'm going to get new glasses, or I'm going to check out something at Shields, or I'm going to the Apple store to buy a phone. I don't mind doing that. But when I'm carrying a desktop computer that weighs as much as a small child, I care. I don't want to carry that in. So yeah, we got to find some place that's got front door parking. All right, I have a new MacBook Air. I would like to use the SSD out of my old MacBook as an external. Is that possible? Yes, it actually is. Now, here's the thing. Macs use special solid-state drives. They actually commission different interfaces for every generation of Mac. So when you run a data recovery lab like we do and a new Mac comes out, we have to go buy a brand new adapter. And because it's only for those Mac drives and they don't sell very many of these adapters, the adapter for the stupid little adapter, for a PC, this adapter is a $4 adapter. For a Mac, it's $180. So you need one of those adapters. So you're going to buy this great big Mac adapter, and then you're going to take your solid state out of your old Mac and stick it in there. I would propose that you would actually save money by getting a regular standard PC solid state hard drive and a regular old external enclosure, snapping them together, and you're good to go. Rather than trying to move the solid state from your old Mac. The other thing is, once the data has been transferred, we can clone the old solid state onto the new one. Even though it's one for PC, there's no problem there. They're just data storage devices. But here's the thing, then we can securely wipe your old one and put it back in the Mac and then restore your old Mac. Old Macs always sell for money. You'll be able to get a few $100s at least, even if it's a really old Mac, selling it on eBay or Craigslist or something if you wanted to recoup some money back out of that old computer. But you'll need to have a hard drive in it to do that, because the hard drives in those are extremely valuable. I guess if it's a solid state that's in there, it's going to be a newer one. It's going to go way, probably for many hundreds of dollars. So you might be better off leaving the hard drive in it and selling it and using the proceeds to purchase new equipment and then keep the rest of the money. That's what I would do. All right, guys, last call for questions. I got to wrap it up because my voice is dying. Now I'm like super conscious about every time I cough now because somebody said something. I'm like, I'm not really sick. Gary Saddlemeyer will be in here on Monday, just like lysoling all the keys and everything, cleaning everything. All right, guys. So in the service centers, we are open today from noon until 5. If you want to come in for the solid state sale, we are completely stocked on solid state hard drives right now. I suspect strongly that will not be the case on Tuesday or Wednesday. We've generated a quick list. Drive Advisor collects a very limited amount of information about your computer. It doesn't collect anything about your browsing or any of the files on your computer or anything like that. It does record, however, whether or not you have a solid state hard drive and how much available space there is on your hard drive. That way, when you come into the service center, if you have Drive Advisor installed, we should already know what size of solid state you need, and we should already be able to tell you. If you're not sure if you have a solid state, you can call the service center, and we should be able to look at the online system now and tell you whether or not you have a solid state and how much room you have available, and whether or not you should upgrade it or buy a new one. If you have a solid state, chances are you don't need a new one. But if you have a mechanical drive, I cannot begin to explain to you. Once you move on to solid state, you will never, in your entire life, you will never go back to a mechanical hard drive ever again for anything. It makes me sick to have mechanical externals now because they're just so slow compared to everything else on the computer. So definitely take advantage of this opportunity in the service centers while we're still flush with hard drives, while everything is good. There's no shortage, there's no quantity limits right now, but we are literally ordering 20 or 30 hard drives a day to resupply what we expect to be going out the door. And usually about mid-month, everyone's like, okay, Thor, you're killing us here, man. We got to slow you down a little bit. But we're going to get we started stocking up about a week ago and making sure we had enough. So anyway, we don't expect them to be impacted by the coronavirus. However, take this opportunity to bring that computer into the service center while you have it in there. If you haven't had a maintenance checkup in the last 6 months, have us do a maintenance check on it. Like I said, we'll clean it down, we'll wipe it down, we'll sterilize it, we'll do all the stuff to it that we do when we do a maintenance checkup on your computer. Also now, if you have an existing solid state in your computer and you feel like Lee did, that it's not as fast as you would like, let us bring it in for a maintenance checkup. We will test the surface of the solid state to make sure that it's operating at or above the speed it's supposed to work at. If it's not, we can then replace it for you, especially if it's under warranty. Maintenance checkups are your friend when you're under warranty because we always replace components, fix problems, things like that under warranty during the maintenance checkups if you have that warranty in place. So make sure you come in for those regular checkups and don't say, oh, I have a warranty. I don't need to have any maintenance done. If something breaks, they'll fix it for free. That's true. We'll replace all the hardware for free. But if your hard drive breaks and you can't get your data off of it and you don't have a backup, you're in a data recovery lab, and that's not free. That's not covered by warranty. We'll fix the hardware for you, but we cannot recover your data. So when it comes to hard drives, guys, maintenance is really, really key. Even with a solid state, even with an extended warranty, make sure you're taking advantage of those maintenance checkups every 6 months. All right, I got to get going, guys. Get some breakfast for the fam. And we'll join you here again next Sunday for another edition of Compute This and another AfterSchrock. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing the program, sharing the AfterSchrock and the regular show, and liking it and following us on Facebook. I appreciate it greatly. If you have a moment to give us a Google review as well, those are hugely important to us. I cannot begin to overemphasize how important those are. When people, especially in the Des Moines market, are looking toward us, we tried to open a places page for Des Moines so we could solicit Des Moines reviews, so we had some when we opened, but you have to have a physical address. So we got to get our address first. Once we have our address, then we can get our location set up and get those reviews coming in. But if you have the opportunity to review one of our 3 service centers on Google, I would genuinely appreciate it. Sit tight, guys. We'll bring you more next week, and thanks for joining us. Have a great week. Enjoy the Super Bowl in 4K.